Hello, and welcome to our fourth session of Ed Talks, quick session talks that will focus on economic development and recovery for our regional business. Thank you all for attending today. The Rockford Area Economic Development Council has recognized and reacted to serve our region in the best way we can to support our community efforts to respond, recover, and now reopen our local business and manufacturers. Please take time to reference the RAEDC website for additional reopen support and direction. As we look to the future, we at the RAEDC, in collaboration with the Rockford University and the Puri School of Business, have been hosting frequent Ed Talks. These conversations will focus on the economic development issues we face amid this pandemic, with the purpose to provide expert guidance on how to adapt and overcome those issues. Today's topic is strategic alignment and performance, identifying common reasons as to why organizations fail to achieve their desired results and why employees fail to achieve performance metrics. COVID-19 has demonstrated that there is an opportunity to recognize and celebrate different ways of responding to crisis, ways of leadership, and methods of accomplishing tasks. The ability to appreciate these different styles is critical to developing a well-rounded team that will contribute to the success of an organization. Dr. Mull will discuss the common reasons employees fail to achieve their goals and what leadership can do to support and realign employees with the goals established for them and the organization. The ability for businesses to obtain their goals is directly related to the ability for employees to obtain their goals. About Dr. Mull. Dr. Mandolen Mull is the chair of the Puri School of Business, director of the Accelerated Business Program, and assistant professor of leadership at Rockford University. Dr. Mull has a PhD in organizational development and change and an MBA in international business. Before coming to Rockford, Dr. Mull was a faculty member at Tarleton State University and the McLean School of Business at the University of Mary Hardin Baylor, where she taught courses in business management, statistics, and international business. Prior to joining the realm of academia, Dr. Mull occurred over a decade of corporate leadership experience in the fields of healthcare, property preservation, and logistical distribution. Possessing an extensive background in leadership performance, Dr. Mull consults with organizations across the globe, providing analysis and interventions targeted to improve organizational performance outcomes. Dr. Mull also conducts scholarly research pertaining to leadership intentions, change management, and statistical analysis. Before we get started, at the end of the presentation, Dr. Mull will answer questions. Please submit your questions through the chat box function. I will read those questions to Dr. Mull at the end of her presentation. And now, with great pleasure, I would like to introduce my professor, Dr. Mandolen Mull. Dr. Mull?
Thank you so very much, Jared. And thank all of you for dialing in today. This is so much fun for me to sit here and get to interact with you all. I always like the question and answer portion of this for sure. But I enjoy doing the presentations for you as well, of course. So today, as Jared mentioned, we are going to be talking about strategic alignment and performance alignment. If you have been following the other Ed Talks we've done, so this is the fourth one in this series, you'll find that you already know that I am an organizational development scholar and consultant. What that means is that I believe in order for me to improve organizational performance, I need to improve team performance. But in order to improve team performance, I have to start with individuals. And so I can do that by one of three ways, really. I can do it by introducing change initiatives. I can do it through leadership, and I can do it through training, or I can do it a combination thereof. And so what we're going to be talking about today is really these things that when I go in and I do consulting with organizations, I find a lot of times we have a lot of alignment out of whack. So I may have an organizational strategy that's focused on one thing, an HR strategy that's focused on something else, and then the marketing strategy is focused on something else. And we need to group all of those things back in. And so this is a lot of what I do when I coach executives and I coach organizations, is to try to help them see how we can get these things back into alignment. And there's a couple of different tools that I use to do that. One is the values discipline model, which we'll be discussing. It's been around for a while. And the other is performance alignment. And I'll kind of pinpoint and hone in on some of that stuff and then give you hopefully some pearls of wisdom. I do have to say, I know that today someone is dialing in that is really the reason I have had success in my entire career, which is my father. My father, I'm back home in Texas, is battling stage 4 cancer, and he's dialing in today. So I'm a pretty proud daughter, and everything that I have learned about being taking care of people, developing organizations is through him. So I'm pretty excited to have him watching today. All right, so the very first question we have to ask when we're thinking about performance alignment is really kind of an easy question, but it's one we don't ask a lot of times. And the question is, why do your customers buy from you? Why do your clients go to you for your services? Now, when I go into organizations, I don't just ask this question of the executive team, because I'll be very blunt here. Most of the time, what they say is inaccurate. I'll ask the executive team, why do your customers buy from you? I'll ask typically middle managers, frontline managers, and customers. Who I typically find is more in alignment with why customers buy from an organization are those frontline workers, those middle managers, right? They're closer to the customer experience. They typically have a better understanding. What I hear from executives is oftentimes, and this is not a knock, but this is a kind of a grandiose statement where they would tell me that they're everything to everyone, right? We do it all. This is why everybody buys from us, because we're perfect in all these areas. And when I start talking to frontline workers and I start talking to customers, I get a better sense of really why customers are purchasing from an organization. The reason this is so crucial is because if we're out of alignment, what I find is that marketing strategies and HR strategies start to get focused on areas that are not why your customers are buying from you. It's wasted energy. So a perfect example here. Let's talk about Walgreens, right? Walgreens is on the corner of happy and healthy. Happiness and healthiness, right? Something like that. But they're on the corner, they're convenient. And if we ask their executive team, why do your customers purchase from you? The answer we get is, well, because we're very efficient. We're on the corner. People can get in and get out pretty easily, much easier than you can from Walmart or something like that. We have high quality products. We have our own Walgreens branded products that are high quality. And our pharmacists know all of our customers by name. And if we start to ask, frontline workers, why do you think your customers buy from you? They say, well, probably because we're convenient. You ask customers, why do you buy from Walgreens? Well, it's convenient. It's on the corner. It's easy to get in and out of. So what we find there's a disalignment, that Walgreens shouldn't be talking about how their pharmacists know everybody's names if that's not why you and I are purchasing from Walgreens, right? And so this is kind of a conversation that I have with organizations oftentimes is, what truly is the reason that your customers are purchasing from you? And are you living up to that? So let me dive down into that a little bit more. So the values discipline model is a model that was created by Tracy and Wyzerma several decades ago. It's a very simple model, but as most things are in business, the most simple tend to be the most impactful, right? And so what we find is that customers typically buy from us for one of three reasons, okay? So I want you to be thinking about your organization and why your customers are purchasing from you, or I'm giving you their business. One is maybe we offer the best price products. We have a really great price point, right? So that's operational efficiency. We're not trying to tell people that we have high quality products. We're not trying to tell them that we give customized customer relationships. We're just trying to say we have the best price point, right? So that is operational efficiency. The other reason could be that they buy because we do have higher products. So we're product leaders, which means individuals are willing to extend a little bit more of their hard-earned dollars to purchase from us because of the quality that we provide them. The third reason is that we truly offer customized and or in-demand or on-demand products. So maybe I provide products that are truly customized, or we make it when you request it, right? So if you go to a restaurant, they make your food when you actually request it. It's the pull system and not the push system, right? Those of you that are in manufacturing. And so when we create relationships with our customers based on that very intricate dynamic, that's more on customer intimacy. And that typically costs us as organizations a lot more to have that strategy. And it typically costs our customers more to have that kind of experience with us. So as you're thinking about your organization and why people purchase from you, you may be saying, I think it's a combination of a couple of things. And maybe I'm not like that executive that Mandolen just spoke about, but I really do genuinely think there's a combination of why people purchase from us. That's not so bad. The reason is there's a minimum threshold that you and I have to meet as business leaders for people to purchase from us, right? In all three areas, right? So if I don't have a reasonable price point, nobody's going to purchase from me. If I don't offer some type of expected quality, nobody's going to purchase from me. And if I don't offer some type of customer service, nobody's going to purchase from me. So there's a minimum threshold that we have to meet in all three areas. However, we cannot be everything to everyone. We have to know what we're great at, why our customers are purchasing from us, and align our strategies in that area. Let me give you an example. So one thing to know here, if your strategy is operational excellence, if it's on price point or convenience or something like that, understand that your customers do not have loyalty to you. They have loyalty to their dollars. They have loyalty to their time. And therefore, the next competitor that comes along and offers something a little bit better in regards to that price point or time efficiency, you've lost your customer. Product leaders have more customer loyalty, as do the customer intimacy organizations, because customers are associating quality and experiences much more than fixated to that dollar price. But if we think about what I see a lot of times is organizations try to say that they're all three of these things, or that they're two of these things really well, that they have the lowest price but the highest quality. And yet, when I look at who they hire, if they're telling me that they have really good quality product, they're a product leader, and so they expect their customers to be willing to spend more money for their products and goods, and yet they're paying their employees minimum wage. They're not training their employees. They're not expecting their employees to provide quality work because they're not hiring quality employees or developing quality employees. There's a problem there. That's out of alignment. Another component here is I can see marketing strategies a lot of times where organizations talk about how they are providing goods at a premium price, at high quality goods at a premium price. And when I start to look into the organization, I start to find that that is not why their customers are purchasing from them. So all that to say, know what you are and be good at it. Know why your customers purchase from you, Ask those questions throughout your organizations, throughout the hierarchy of the organization, and make sure that your HR and your marketing strategies are in alignment with your organizational strategy. If you want to be the product leader, then that's what you need to lean into on marketing strategy, and understand that that means you're going to have to pay your employees more. Your employees are probably going to have some type of higher credentials. They're probably going to need additional training and development inside the organization to deliver the quality that your customers expect. If you're going to go operational excellence, I always throw out McDonald's or Walmart, right? They make no massive claims to really have higher quality products. They really just say we're good at a price point. And so we know that as far as how employees are hired, how employees are trained, and how employees are paid, compensated, goes along with that strategy. It goes along with their marketing strategy. So often I see well-intentioned business leaders that get muddy in this area because they're trying to be everything to everyone. They're trying to maintain customer relationships, but they're also trying to be at the best price point. And these balances are really inauthentic. And if they don't align with why your customer's purchasing from you to begin with, it's not doing you any good. Okay. So as I said, in this area, once you have your organizational strategy, once you say this is why our customers buy from us and it's product leadership, that's what we're going to go with, then make sure your marketing is saying we have high quality products. Don't even try to talk about the fact that you have great price points, because your customers are willing to spend a little bit more money for the quality you deliver. Own that. Lean into that. That's important. And as I mentioned earlier, make sure that your HR strategy aligns with that. You cannot expect if your customer base, so a lot of times what we say is our customers, the demographics of our customers should also align with the demographics of our employees, right? If I expect that, my customer base is usually going to have discretionary funds above their, meeting their bills every month, they may have higher levels of education, then I would expect that my employee base would be compensated in a way and would also need to be hired based on certain credentials that would match my customer base, all right? So I don't always see that happening in organizations, but again, that's a disalignment. It's very unrealistic to expect employees who are interfacing with your customers, if your customer has willing to expend discretionary funds on your product, but your employees don't have discretionary funds. They don't know how to communicate in those areas to buy premium products. There's a disconnect there. And that can really suffer the quality of the experience and potentially customer relationships, and you could lose customer loyalty in that. So that's something to be thinking about. What we're going to talk about next is performance alignment. And many organizations also utilize the SWOT analysis, so I'll briefly go over that. Most of you that are business leaders have already used SWOT. And then something that I came up with several years ago because I couldn't remember certain acronyms, and I came up with the 4 E's because I thought it was easy enough for me to remember. And I was giving a presentation a few months back, and I talked about the 4 E's, and a former student of mine said, I took 2 years worth of classes from you and I never heard the 4 E's, and now you're giving it to me. You've been holding it. I thought sometimes I come up with this stuff again. It comes back to me after a while. So I have to always remember I've been doing this stuff for a while now. So I want you to ask yourself right now, what obstacles are present currently that can prevent the organization from obtaining customer loyalty? And this is at the organizational level. So why might your organization not be able to retain clients? Some of the common reasons why organizations fail to meet their performance standards or performance goals are the following. First is failing to focus on stakeholders' needs. And a lot of that in the stakeholders, I believe, is our customers' needs. That we're trying to be something we're not. We're trying to deliver products or services that is not the reason that our customers are coming to us. And if that's the case, there's that disconnect, that disalignment, and our customers are going to leave us. That makes a lot of sense, right? The next reason is that we fail to link performance to our strategic goals and objectives. I see this a lot. When I see organizations do the yearly performance reviews, they're very, very broad-based. They typically are not drilled down enough with a lot of specifics to actually tie in for employees to really understand why is it that we're doing the things that we do? Why is it that our customers buy from us? Are we operational excellence? Are we a product leader? Or are we customer intimacy based organization? And if we are one of those areas, is my performance tied to that strategy? And I will tell you, most oftentimes it's not. Employees do not know what the big strategic plans are. You and I as business leaders will spend so much time coming up with strategic planning. We will do these SWOT analysis. We will do root cause analysis. We'll drill down and we'll come up with these beautiful, beautiful strategic goals. And then we launch it, and yet nobody buys into it because we fail to link their performance metrics to the strategic goals. Well-intentioned, but there's a breakdown there, okay? And I see this very, very often. And because of that breakdown, a lot of times we fail to recognize it. We fail to actually see that people are not performing towards those strategic endeavors. The reason for this is, more often than not, because we fail to eliminate managerial malpractice. What I mean by that is well-intentioned managers who aren't willing or are not comfortable, do not have the managerial courage to have the difficult conversations when they first start to see performance misalignment, right? So managerial malpractice, I believe, is the common reason we do not meet our performance metrics. A lot of people will tell me it's communication. That's a component of managerial malpractice. But I really think that it's because we do not train and empower managers to have managerial courage to have the difficult conversations when they need to have it. And what I say on this, my students will tell you, a lot of times I say you do the hard thing now to make it easier later, rather than the easy thing now to make it harder later. I also tell my students that we're not trying to hold people accountable in an adversarial way, but we're holding them accountable in a way toward the betterment of what they asked us to do as their leaders, which is to make them sustainably successful for the rest of their careers. And so if that's the case, if our people have asked us to make them sustainably successful for the rest of their careers, you and I as leaders, it is incumbent upon us to make sure we have those difficult conversations, that we tell people they're not meeting the performance metrics. And it is absolutely a managerial issue that can really, really bring down an organization. And I see this over and over and over in a variety of industries. And it's not that the managers are bad managers. I always say that with kind of air quotes. It's that they don't have the courage or the comfortability to understand the difference between being adversarial or holding someone accountable. And so this can really have an impact on why an organization does not meet its performance metrics. And that leads to a failure to actually manage performance, right? To actually do follow-up. A lot of times we come out and say, here's our metrics and here's what we need to meet. And then we don't really go back and have those conversations. I'm part of when I coach managers on gaining managerial courage or managerial bravery, I talk to them about the fact of most of the times your people know that they're not performing. And the best way to kind of start that dialogue is to say, hey, how do you think it's going with X? how do you think this situation is going? How do you think your performance is going right now? How would you rate your performance right now? How comfortable do you feel about it? And a lot of times what our employees will tell us is, I don't think I'm hitting my mark quite yet. I don't think I've found my stride. I feel I'm still having some difficulty here. And that begins to allow us to open up that conversation without it being in that adversarial component, right? Another reason that organizations fail to meet their metrics is they fail to encourage employee involvement and support, buy-in, especially buy-in with your key influencers. I have an expressive personality. I know that I influence people quite a bit. And if you listen to my Ed Talk, the leading through a crisis, you heard me say that the number one way we define leadership is by the word influence. I can influence you towards positive goals. I can influence you toward negative outcomes. It depends on my mood that day, right? It's incredibly important for me as a leader to understand what I can wield, that I have a lot of power, and how I encourage other people or how I could damage other people. And so failing to encourage those influencers, those key influencers to get buy-in is really a death knell for organizations. Another way here, if I can get my screen to, oh, I knew that was going to do that, is failing to focus on long-term results. So let's see. I'm failing to focus on long-term results, pardon me, as I do my technology here. This is always happening to me. Sinking or swimming, guys. Right, so when we really want to talk about the difference between where we're at in our organizations, right now with COVID, are we sinking or are we swimming? Are we just focused on short-term results, or are we focused on long-term results? Are we surviving or succeeding, I guess is the other way to say this. And I talked about this in another Ed Talk. It's really important for us to be thinking about where we are pulling people in for long-term strategic goals. If we're always putting out fires, you and I as business leaders, if all we're focused on is trying to get those fires put out, we are not planning for long-term sustainability. It will come back and bite us. It absolutely will be a death knell to our progress. So I told you why organizations fail, but I told you I don't really consult to organizations per se. Organizations hire me, but what I really try to consult to is individual people, right? Because I cannot get an organization to just change its culture. I cannot get it to change its performance metrics, its performance standards, the way things are getting done, until I start working and changing the people. So working with and changing the people is really critical. So I want you to be thinking about what obstacles are preventing your employees from performing high standards. And this can be either at the individual or team level. We cannot do anything organizationally. When we are in those strategic planning meetings, that's fine. But until we get the individual people and the teams involved working together, the overarching strategies are never going to help net us the goals we want them to. We have to focus on the individual. So common reasons why individuals do not meet their performance goals. And there's more of these here than there are why the organizations don't, as you probably suspect, right? One is that they focus on less important activities. I coach a lot of team members and talk with them about coaching up to their manager. When I have individuals talking to me that, you know, they're frustrated at work, they don't know, you know, they don't feel like they're being led by a good boss. And again, I always put those in air quotes. What I ask them is, are you and your boss in alignment of what it is you're supposed to be performing, what the expectation is of your work? Ask your boss what the 3 priorities are for today, or for this week, or for this month, or for this quarter. And then ask them to allocate a percentage to which one is more important, how much time you're supposed to be spending on that every day. If you tell me that it's a 70-20-10 breakdown and that this is something I need to be working on for the next month, then I'm going to be focusing 70% of my day on priority number 1, 20% on the other, 10% on the third one, right? If I start getting myself, I know it's very, very simple, but this is really helpful for a lot of the people that I coach, is to say, let's break that down a bit and make sure that you and your boss really understand what is the priority. Because I hear a lot of people say, well, everything's the priority, and that's really unrealistic. There could actually be physical processes or barriers in place preventing adequate performance. Could be that we're working with a paper process and too many hands are touching it. What we think are actual checks and balances really aren't QCing the work in the process. We could eliminate those stop gaps, add it on to the end, and perhaps that would be more successful for us. In this area, I would refer back to my reengineering session that I did, the ed talk that I did on reengineering, because that's usually what we see as an issue there when we approach it in a reengineering format. Could be simply that their jobs are poorly designed. Most of us do not know what our job descriptions are. Most of us are still living on that really ambiguous line at the bottom, right, that says other duties as assigned. We feel like that's like 100% of our job these days. But it could be that the jobs that we are doing are really ill-defined, and we have a lot of role ambiguity. We don't really quite know what it is that we're supposed to be doing. And so it hasn't been explicitly explained to us, and that prohibits people from being able to perform successfully. And that's where it could be that we have the wrong fit. So I've been doing some repairs around my home, which is always dangerous for me. And I don't really know tools because my father fixed everything when I was growing up. And so I'm learning. But I've been thinking things about, sometimes at work, we may have a screwdriver trying to do the work of a wrench. Doesn't make the screwdriver bad. Doesn't make them unsuccessful or ill-equipped to be able to flourish in the organization. It means this is not the right fit for them. I also talk about a puzzle theory a lot of times with people that I work with, and I talk about if you've ever put a puzzle together, you may have got that blue sky, and you find this little area that you're just convinced that this piece goes in, and you keep pushing it, trying to get it to go in there, and you later find out it wasn't supposed to go in there. So you move it over to where it's supposed to actually belong, only it doesn't fit as well as it should. And when you find the original piece that's supposed to go in the place that you tried to shove the other one into, it doesn't fit as well. What I mean by that is sometimes when we have the wrong person in the wrong role, they stay in it too long. They can damage not only those around them, and even when we bring in a new person into that role later on, that person may be ill-equipped to really catch up and get us back to where we need to be. But we also damage the person that's in the wrong role. And that's why I always say managerial courage is so important. Clear is kind, unclear is unkind. It's not that the individual can't be successful in another area, but we may have the wrong tool to carry out the task we're asking them to carry out. Friends, a lot of times we don't ask that question. A lot of times as managers, we think it's because they don't have the motivation to perform, or we think that they're just lazy, or whatever it is that we're thinking of it is. We rarely stop to think, do we have the right person, the right tool in this role to carry out what we're asking them to carry out? And if not, it's not that that person is bad. It's just we put them in the wrong spot. We put the wrong puzzle piece in the wrong spot. Yours and my job as business leaders is not to damage our people, because when we do that, if we don't have managerial courage to try to help them be successful in other areas, we could potentially permanently damage their potential over the lifetime of their careers and their lifetimes. That's really massive impacts, and it's something we should really be thinking about as leaders. Could be that our employees don't understand their job responsibilities. That ties a little bit back to their jobs being poorly designed, that they have that role ambiguity. They don't know what's expected of them. This is a huge one. They don't know how to measure or evaluate their own performance. I know when I interviewed here at Rockford University, I asked the question of what does success look like at the end of my first year? How will you know that you've made a good hire? I wanted to know before I ever got offered the job, what would that metric look like? How often are we having those conversations with our employees that they know what the metric looks like for them to be successful? It could be that they don't trust us as leaders. They don't trust their managers. And if you heard my first Ed talk, I talked about there's 3 questions you and I as leaders have to answer every day for our employees. The first one is, can I trust you? Second one is, have you equipped me to be successful for excellence? The third one, do you care about me? We should be answering those 3 questions every single day for our people. And if we are doing that, we can get them in much better alignment and get those performance standards usually met. Could be that they don't feel comfortable asking for help, or they fear repercussions, which is the last thing that you and I want. When one of our employees make a mistake, we would hope that they would come to us first, right away, and tell us, give us a heads up so that we can mitigate the impact. But they don't. They typically go into shame, they try to hide it, and we find out later after it's become much more of an impact, right? If we're answering those 3 questions for our people every day, can I trust you? Have you given me the tools to be successful? And do you care about me? Our people are going to feel a lot more comfortable coming and talking to us more often. It could be that they genuinely think they are doing their jobs correctly, that we haven't stepped up that managerial courage component to correct them, right? So we have not stepped up to consult them and said, hey, I know you think you're doing this correctly, but actually it should be done this way, or actually I need more of this and less of this. You and I are diagnosticians when we're leaders. We have to be telling our people what we need more of and what we need less of. And doing that again in a way that's not adversarial, but in a way that's holding them accountable because they asked us to make them sustainably successful. Obviously, it could be that they have personal problems that prevent them from performing their jobs. It's unrealistic to say that employees should leave their home lives at the door, because they don't leave their work lives at the door when they leave. They take it home with them. And that certainly has an impact on employee engagement. So we just need to be aware of that. One of the biggest things is it could be that we try to encourage everyone to work as a team, but we only reward individual performers, individual contributors. This is big. In the military, we give medals. Simon Sinek is famous for saying this. We give medals to people who will sacrifice themselves for the betterment of others. But in corporate life, we give awards and bonuses to people who sacrifice others for the betterment of themselves. We've got it backwards, right? And so these are competing interests, and it's understandable why our employees would be confused here. I'm not going to go real deep into this SWOT analysis tool, but I do use this sometimes when I'm talking about performance alignment. Most of you are very familiar with SWOT analysis. That stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The strengths and weaknesses are the things that you and I can control. They are internal to the organization, and they're things that you and I as business leaders and as employees have some kind of control or say over. The opportunities and threats are things that may benefit us or may harm us that we do not have control for. An example would be, if I just want to think about right now at RU. So a strength of RU, we're a small institution, we're very agile and nimble. So because we have small class sizes, because we have very good relationships with our students, we're navigating going back, into the classrooms right now, in a very personalized way. Some weaknesses is because we are small, we don't have, maybe some of the bells and whistles that some of the bigger state schools have in order to, address some of these kinds of things. So where they have more bureaucracy that keeps them from being as nimble and agile as we are, perhaps they have more funding for things that they can do that we are unable to do. Externally, some opportunities for us that we don't have control over would be, if there's, a recession, typically we see that people go back to college. And our degree completion programs are really, really well designed for people who have work experience coming back, or credentials coming back to school. And so that could be an opportunity for us. And then of course a threat is just by its nature, COVID, right? The vid, the thing that none of us want to keep talking about, but it absolutely is a threat that could harm us. So I do sometimes use this tool to look at performance alignment. And then the 4 E's. Okay, so like I said, I came up with these 4 E's to try to think about what you and I as leaders are using to help people. And so it allows me to help my employees align with the strategy that is our operational strategy, our HR strategy, and our marketing strategy. Remember, all 3 of those things need to be in sync. So my 4 E's are, the first one is I need to make sure that I am explaining my expectations to my employees and how it relates to the organizational and strategies, right? The strategic plans throughout. So the first part is I need to actually educate, explain expectations. The second one is now I've got to equip them. I have to make sure that not only do they have the resources and the tools to be successful, but that I remove barriers that could hinder their success, okay? The third thing I need to do is empower. I need to really explicitly tell my employee, I've told you what the expectation is and how it aligns with our organizational strategies. I've equipped you for success. And now I believe that you can go and carry out this work. I have confidence in you and I'm empowering you to go do this work with very little supervision from me. I will say a lot of my nerd friends and I right now believe that empowered leadership is going to be the new form of leadership that we see born out of C-19, out of the COVID crisis, because you and I really don't have time to really follow up a lot of things with our employees right now. We're still putting out fires on a day-to-day basis. And so we are really trusting our employees to go out and do the work we're asking them to do. We've explained it, we've equipped them, we're empowering them. And so we're not really following up on the 4th one. And that 4th one is evaluation. Are we inspecting what we expect? This is crucial, and a lot of us aren't able to do it right now. I will say, recently this happened to me. I had done the first 3 E's. I wasn't inspecting what I expected, and it put me a bit in a hole. I came back and found out, someone wasn't performing the way that I needed them to perform, and so it was kind of all hands on deck to get things, get the ship righted again. And this is where I think it's really crucial for you and I as leaders to be asking ourselves, are we having these 4E conversations and interactions with our employees? If our employee is not performing to the expected quality, consider what area we failed at. Where did that breakdown occur? Did I not explain the expectation to them clearly? Did I not give them the tools or remove the barriers for them to be successful? Did I not empower them? Did I not tell them that I had confidence that they could go do this and encourage them to actually go do it? Or did I not evaluate what I expected? And therefore, the ball got dropped. If you say, no, I think I did all 4 of those things, and all 4 of these things are within our circle of control. If you watch my first Ed Talk on leading through crisis, I have circle of control. It's hyperlinked here on this presentation that will be on the Radic website that you can access, or you certainly can shoot me an email. I can send it to you. But our circle of control really pertains to the things that you and I, surround ourselves with, and then what we put back out into the world. If you and I say, I did my 4 E's, I did these things, then I would go back to slide 8 here in this presentation and investigate which of those 11 individual or team barriers could be the issue. Why might our individuals might not be performing? So I really hope that this presentation gave you, I know it's always a fast and furious one, but I hope it gave you a good insight on how to kind of diagnose why things might be out of alignment and why you may not be hitting your performance metrics. Because again, we are diagnosticians as leaders. And so hopefully if we keep having these types of conversations, we keep having, where are these breakdowns occurring? Are we in alignment in all of these different areas? Have we taken care of the 4 E's? Have we addressed why we're not doing it individually, and how that's impacting us at the organizational level? If we keep having these dialogues, we're conditioning ourselves as better diagnosticians, which helps us find better solutions. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to questions and feedback. I hope you guys have some for me today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mull. Yes, we have 5 questions that have come in, and we will start with the first question here. Some of these questions may have come in prior to the answer given in your presentation. Okay. So the first question is, how can organizations overcome and justify a realignment of employee compensation to meet the need of business growth?
Great question. So a lot of times it's looking at, I know that people want to look at Coupa or they want to look at COLA standards when they're looking at employee compensation. But a lot of times when I talk to, especially HR departments, because it's usually our trusty HR folks that are really trying to get this ball moving, is having the conversation of what is our organizational strategy into the future? What is our values discipline model? Where are we saying that we are good at? If we're going to be product leaders or we're going to be customer intimacy, then we are going to be expecting that our employees have better training and better development. We're going to expect that they have higher credentials than if we were at a operational efficiency strategy. And because of that, if we do not hire individuals that have more credentials, whatever those credentials may be for your industry, and or provide them with in-house training, leadership development training, things like we're doing right here with this, right? This is why organizations hire me. So they realize that they hired a lot of people, really good people that didn't have the credentials coming in, put them into leadership positions. We find that people are hired into the first management position at age 30. They don't get trained until about, on average, age 42. A lot of bad practices get into place there. So it could be potentially that you can't launch into compensation right away, but you might be able to negotiate with your executive teams and your organizational leadership teams about training and development your in-house people, because that is a good cost savings if you can keep and retain employees and coach them up and give them the appropriate training they need. So maybe you didn't hire them that way and you weren't able to compensate them that way when they came in, but perhaps you can provide them enough training in-house that will get you to where you need to go. And then I think it's really having those discussions of the alignment, right, is really showing just kind of that breakdown. It's difficult, especially right now with people in everybody's budget is incredibly tight with furloughs and everything that's going on. Compensation is not the conversation to be having right now. I've been talking to area leaders, business leaders, and I've talked to them about these presentations. I've said, watch these. If you can't bring in, you can't bring in a consultant, you can't afford in-house training right now, watch what Radic's setting up for you guys, these Ed Talks. We're trying to help develop our greater area here in Rockford through these sessions, and trying to provide training throughout that is, to no cost of all of you that are watching right now. So hopefully something like that gives you a little bit of understanding. I would say I would not be having the compensation conversation right now with organizations, but I think there's still ways you can get training right now to get your employees where they need to be successful. And I think now is the time to really be training your employees. Now is the time for great leadership. You need it. And now is a really important time to have that conversation.
Thank you. Our next question, do you have suggestions to encourage employee engagement?
Employee engagement hinges on you and I as leaders. I'm going to say it developmental relationships. So I'm writing a book chapter right now on this with my good friend, Dr. Brad Schuck, who's the #1 employee engagement scholar in the world. He makes me look really badly. He's fantastic at 40 years old over there, kind of rocking it out on employee engagement. And what we say all the time is relationships is the currency of organizations, right? If my people feel that they can trust me, if I have the courage to correct them and that I'm kind and clear with them, clear is kind, right? Brene Brown, that if I'm sitting here saying, you're not performing where you need to be, you asked me to make you successful, you need this paycheck, you need the quality of life that you expect, therefore it is my responsibility to hold you accountable. Managerial courage goes a very, very long way in promoting engagement. If I know where I stand with my boss at all times, right, even if he has to tell me the things that I don't want to hear, I always say it's like rubbing alcohol. We sting you in the beginning, but we save you in the end, right? So maybe I don't want to hear that I'm not performing the way that I'm supposed to, but he's doing it so that I can continue to have the quality of life that I expect, that I can continue to be employed. I can continue to feel good about the work that I'm doing and that it's meaningful. And so relationships, I think it really hinges on managerial courage. I think it hinges on trust and development. And, you know, a lot of well-intentioned organizations try to do things like employee bonuses or those kinds of things. Those are short measures. Those are stopgaps. That really doesn't lead to engagement as much as if I have loyalty and allegiance to my team or to my boss or to the people I work with on a day-to-day. That is crucial every day. And so, I don't know, Jared, we can do a session on employee engagement if you want. I've got a lot of stuff on that. And we can kind of revisit that because I've got a lot there and I want to make sure I get to the other questions, but I certainly have a lot of information on employee engagement if somebody wants to reach out to me on that.
Thank you. Next question. To find the right fit, is it better to shuffle people around or to let the person go and hire someone new for a better fit?
You're taking a risk if you hire someone new, right? You're always going to take a risk. Anybody you hire, you're hoping that their past performance is going to be indicative of their future performance. But here's the key. They're coming into a whole new context. Even though they may have done the same work that you're asking them to do previously, they haven't done it with your team and your environment with your resources. You're taking a risk anytime you bring somebody in. So what I would do, this was always my management strategy, as I really like trying, I always felt if somebody was giving me effort, I could find a way to help them succeed, right? So what I would do is figure out what was it that they were good at. Was there a way that I could align my team kind of like a sports team? If I had somebody that was really good at data entry, so say I'm an operations manager and my team is expected to perform, you know, I have a team of 10 customer service representatives and they're all supposed to do the exact same work, right? In order for my team to hit its performance metrics. But the reality is they're not all the same. I may have some people who work well under pressure. So I need those people to be kind of in my hot seat. Those are the ones that are going to handle urgent situations much better. Maybe I have data entry work that needs to be done, and I really don't have time for my more customer focused kind of individuals to be working on that. So I give that to the people who are better suited for that. So I basically take my overarching goal and expectations of my team, and I break it down and align it to the strengths of each of my team members, just like we would with a sports team. I'm a huge Texas Rangers baseball fan. The person with the best arm is my pitcher, and they all are responsible for achieving team results and team goals, right? So I think about the teams that I work with in that kind of dynamic as well. And so what I would recommend that you do is I wouldn't recommend letting someone go if you have the wrong fit for them. If they're giving you effort, that's crucial. If they're giving you effort, if they're not giving you effort and they're completely disengaged and you can't win them back over towards that, then perhaps it is, but also be cognizant that you're taking a risk on whomever you hire. Great question. That's a fun one for me.
Thank you. Next question. what do you say to managers who say they don't have time for training?
You don't have time not to have time for training. Yeah, you just don't. I'm sorry, you don't. You do not because again, what I said earlier is if you're always putting out fires, you're not planning for long-term strategies and long-term goals, you're going to be spinning your wheels and you're going to become very, very antiquated. You're going to become very complacent. And you're always going to be trying to catch up. And so you have to make the time for training. Just like we talk about people having to make time for self-care and their own mental health and their own emotional health and all of these types of physical health, you have to make time for the training because your people are your greatest asset. And if you're not investing in them, your organization is not being invested in. I don't care how much software you buy. I don't care how much, money that you spend on different conveyor belts or all these other kinds of things. If you're not investing in the people, your organization will never be as successful as it can be. You have to invest in the people. So managers who say they do not have time, my argument is you don't have time to not have time. Because if you keep with that mindset, you're going to end up in 6 months and a year and in 2 years with a team of ill-trained, unmotivated, disengaged employees that are consistently not hitting their performance metrics. And that won't be the time to start training them. So you're going to get yourself into a really, really big bind. You do the hard thing now, friends, to make it easier later, not the easy thing now, because it will make it harder later, right?
Great advice. Thank you. Next question. At the end of my performance conversations, I allow the employee a chance to share their constructive feedback on my performance as their results coach. Good idea?
Great idea. Not good. Great. Great idea. Great leaders want to be held accountable, friends. So you should always be asking them, give me feedback. Now, if you've answered those 3 questions for them every day and you have a very transparent relationship with them, right? If you're communicating with them in that way that, you're holding them accountable and you're wanting them to hold you accountable, then there's not that fear of, hey, if I tell you that I think you're not doing a great job, Mr. Boss or Mrs. Boss, then you're having that dialogue. And that goes back to that engagement component. Great leaders want to be accountable. When I have someone tell me something and it hurts a little bit, I know that that's something I need to investigate because I need to figure out if this is someone I trust, that they would never say something to me to hurt me. They're saying it to help me. It is not adversarial, it's accountability. And I've got to investigate that and figure out, they're telling me that I'm not on the right course to be successful. They're recorrecting me. They're redirecting me back to where I need to be. Great leaders want that. It's not always comfortable. It's not always fun. Sometimes you feel like you're a tribute in the Hunger Games, but it's what we need to do to become who we're becoming. It's on the path of our own development. Absolutely a great strategy there from that questioner. Fantastic job there.
Thank you. Next question, final question. As the manager, what is a good way to promote employees holding each other accountable for their performance?
So efficient teams do that, right? Efficient teams hold each other accountable to the goals that we're all supposed to have. And we do it again in that, not in an adversarial way, but I think it's important for us to also remember that efficient teams also champion each other. So we need to be our biggest champions of each other's successes. And it goes back to understanding collective goals versus individual rewards. And that's where we get ourselves into trouble sometimes, right? Is having goals for the team and yet only recognizing the contributions of individuals. So to that end of how to get people to hold each other accountable is saying, we all have asked this organization to pay our bills and to give us a quality of life that we currently live and that we want to live into the future. So in order for us to keep having this quality of life and the one that we want to grow into, we're all in the same boat and we all have to be rowing in the same direction. And we're going to make this pact. We're going to make this agreement with each other that we're going to help get each other there, because we understand that Joe has 2 kiddos at home and we care about his kiddos, and we need Joe to be successful so that he can provide for his family. And that way we're all successful here. We're going to ask Joe to hold me accountable, because Joe knows that, you know, I have goals that I want to accomplish in my career, and I can't get there by myself. If you have a dream and you can achieve it all on your own, you're dreaming too small. You are dreaming too small. Because we all have weaknesses and we all have flaws, we need each other. We need to be thinking about how we're aligning with each other, holding each other accountable, again, towards goals, towards positive outcomes, not in adversarial ways, but to sit there and say, help us grow, help us continue to have the lives that we want to have and grow into what we're becoming. And I think when we start having those developmental kind of talks, we really start creating a foundation for success. I think it's absolutely critical.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Great questions.
Thank you, Dr. Yes, absolutely. This is, and of course, so I'll just thank you, Dr. Mull, for a great presentation and your strategies to help us understand what situational, what the leadership is, and how we can apply the mentioned techniques to our daily work. We all appreciate your time and expertise, and we are very fortunate to have you and the resources of the Rockford University available to us all. Thank you all that attended. We hope, yes, thank you. We hope that you all found value in today's presentation and you can take what you have learned here today with you back to your workplace. Little housekeeping, September 17th, third Thursday of next month, our session 5 Ed Talks topic will be employee engagement. That was suggested by Dr. Mull, so we'll go with that. For more information on these webinars and other RAEDC resources, please visit the Rockford Area Economic Development Council website, and please do not hesitate to reach out to the Rockford University for additional support and/or resources. We have a powerhouse of a university right here in our region center point. And please do share, go to the website and pull the content for these sessions and share them with your staff and employees. It is truly a great resource. Again, thank you all for attending today's presentation. A big shout out to Professor Mull's father. You're in our thoughts and prayers. Continue each day, fight the battle. Everyone have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.